The plan right now is for them to put shovels in the ground in the second quarter of 2025. So basically a year from now, they're tracking right now to put shovels in the ground. Will that happen? Look, PD, I don't know. Construction timelines are crazy. There's all sorts of variables at play here. Who knows if this will play out? But that is what they're saying right now. The timeline for putting shovels in the ground to begin actual construction of the arena, not the rest of the entertainment district, the arena first, because it will be the first thing that they build. That should be starting in the second quarter of 2025.
And so let's follow that timeline then. So if you start then, and we've seen a lot of the comments in the chat about the team being currently in mullet, and how long, does that mean that this team will continue to play at Mullet Arena? And two, are there any other options, including Glendale?
Let me start with Glendale, because I've heard some people mentioning, the PA is not going to be happy. They're not going to want them playing in mullet. They're definitely not going to be happy. But honestly, there's not much that the PA can do. They don't have power to change this. And by the way, the PA signed off with the NHL on them playing at mullet. I hear this rumor out there too, or this narrative that, they were only supposed to play here 2 years, 3 max. That's not true. They signed a 3-year agreement with an option for a 4th year, and there was an option to extend it beyond that ASU is amenable to. Now, they have to talk about it when they want to extend past 4 years, but for 4 years, they were set. ASU had already agreed to that, and there was a lot of talk that they were going to need it. So the plan right now with construction timeline is 3 more seasons at Mullet Arena. That means 5 total seasons at Mullet Arena if they keep to this timeline. That would be, if the remediation of the Tempe land had taken longer than originally expected, and it might have, because there's a lot of stuff in that dump, as you know, Petey, because you flew a kite there.
I was there.
It may have tracked to the same timeline, but maybe it is still a little longer. Again, they expected to be at mullet for 4 years. So this is 1 year additional, if, again, a big if they stick to this timeline with the construction. So they're definitely going to be at mullet for 3 more years if they win this land auction and start this process.
But you mentioned that, Craig, and it's something I want to say, because it's come across. I've seen it on Twitter this week. We've seen it on the internet ever since the Coyotes started playing there. It's a disgrace. It's a joke. The league shouldn't play there. This can't happen. Again, the only reason I'm bringing it up again, because you've already said it. But is there any recourse for anybody? Like if the PA doesn't like it, it stinks, and I saw somebody say, there's bleachers there. Like, does anybody have any recourse? Because and the only reason I bring it up is the Oakland A's came out today and announced they're playing in a very small stadium that's less than half of the.
It's way less than half. Especially seats, it's like 10,000 seats. But when you look at the percentage, it's even a smaller percentage of their capacity than mullet is to Gila River Arena. It's interesting, isn't it?
So I wonder if people will be doing the same thing, and they're years in Sacramento. So I'm just curious to see if anybody has any recourse on, hey, this stinks. The PA said this stinks, and fans in Canada, apparently, because they watch it on TV and they don't like it. I don't know what the sightlines are for television cameras in Quebec, but apparently they're bad and they don't like it. But the people here don't seem to mind. Does anybody have any recourse at Mullet Arena?
Just the league. Unless we're talking about individual players who decide, you know what, I don't want to play 3 to 4 more years at Mullet Arena. Trade.
Sure.
We could have another Jacob Chikrin situation, right, where another player requests a trade, and that's within their rights. I don't blame them if they don't want to do that. Plus, it means, let's be realistic about this. If they're playing at Mullet Arena, they're probably still in a rebuild, PD, right? So do you want to commit that much of the prime of your career to playing in this arena and knowing that your team's probably not going to be a playoff team? If a player decides at that point, you know what, I want to move on, that's within their rights, completely understandable. But as far as the PA or another group coming in and saying, this can't happen anymore, no, they don't have any power. The league has already signed off on this being an NHL arena. They came in and got it up to spec. They had to build the annex to have the proper locker rooms. Both the PA and the NHL signed off on Mullet Arena as an NHL arena. And I know it was with the understanding that it was going to be temporary and maybe a slightly shorter tenure, but they did sign off on it. So if the league turns around and says, sorry, we're staying for another year, there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the league. And we've talked about mullet. We know where their appetite is for that. They again, you said they signed off on it. Let's talk about where they are with this timeline, meaning we've heard a lot of rumors about relocation. We've talked about Salt Lake City. We've said, this can't happen. But we also heard from the league that's very supportive of this ownership group. We've heard it recently. He's intended to buy this land, and we're going to stay and see if he does that. Do you have any, like, we're at the point now where the auction's been announced?
Yeah.
And Morello is clearly going to be a bidder. Do you have any sense that the league is trying to back out of this? The league is looking at relocation, or is the league going to let this process ride through, at least through the auction?
My gut says they're going to let this ride to the auction. And that's based on conversations with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. Now, could they be doing something behind the scenes that I don't know about, that they don't want to tell me about? Of course. I'm not going to say that I know everything that the league is planning. And trust me, Gary Bettman's got contingency plans. He has with every other relocation rumor here. We've talked about this on the shows before. How many times before has he used another possibility as leverage? Mark Chipman, for instance. How many times has that happened before? Gary's going to have his contingencies because you have to. He's just smart operating. But as he has told me, we want the team in Arizona. Obviously, Alex wants to win the auction to make that happen. So unless I'm reading the tea leaves entirely wrong, my sense is the league is going to let this go to auction as Alex Morello's last chance to keep this team.
And I've seen a comment from Bill Daly too, Craig, that if this auction is into mid or late June, which it now apparently, it's announced, it's June 27th, so it is going to be later in June. I've seen a comment from Bill Daly that if it is mid to late June, that they're going to have a difficulty in moving this team by the fall of 2024. What's your sense on that? Do you see this, like, again, we're talking about, this is the ball's in Morello's court. He brings his checkbook, he wins this bid. I don't see there's any way that the NHL is moving this team in the fall of 2024 if Alex Morello wins this bid in June. What are your thoughts?
What would be the point if he wins the bid? Why did you let him go through this exercise if you're going to pull the team? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the question for me is, like, if he loses it, do they have time to move it? Bill Daly did not say definitively. He said probably not. And he's an attorney. So when I hear that sort of thing, I'm like, yeah, they probably could. And people keep talking, they got to make the schedule. They can just make 2 schedules, guys. It's not that hard to make 2 schedules, one with Salt Lake, one with Arizona. So stop with that stupid narrative, because there's a way around that.
Sure.
If they lose this auction, is there a possibility they stay one more year in Arizona? Sure. But do I feel like this is it for Alex Morello? Absolutely. It's on him. As I said before, it is on him to show up and win the auction.